You're listening to the Holistic Health Front podcast.
Whether you've already taken steps towards a healthier life,
or you're just starting to explore this path,
this podcast aims to help all of us live longer and more energized lives,
so we can all do the things we want and be the person we know we can be.
We bring on functional health experts, parents, professionals, and everyday people who want to make positive changes in their lives.
And we create powerful conversations about how to feel good in a fun, easy, and understandable way,
so you can live the most fulfilling life possible.
Enjoy today's discussion and let us hear your thoughts in our Powerful People Facebook group.
The information presented in this podcast is not meant to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent, or mitigate any disease.
If you have any questions about your health or the health of a loved one, please consult your healthcare practitioner.
Now let's begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Health Front podcast. All of our hundreds of thousands of listeners around the world. It's great to have you back here with us. Today, we have Stephanie and we have Coach Shannon. Stephanie, could you say hi?
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
And then Coach Shannon, could you say hi?
What's up, everyone?
All right. And I'm Tyler. So you can hear our voices and know who's talking. We're here today. This is our crew. Today, our topic is when life feels too heavy. This is for those of you who have found yourself saying, gosh, I don't know if I can take any more of this, or like what else can go wrong? This is for whenever life just kind of throws some curveballs our ways. Life sometimes can punch us in the stomach and leave us feeling wounded for a little while. And in that moment, we have a lot of thoughts and we have a lot of feelings that come up. And sometimes we don't really know how to make sense of those thoughts and feelings in that moment. So we just kind of get frustrated, and we either, there's a lot of different ways that we can, react to that moment, but I don't think that there's necessarily a way to absolutely prevent those moments from ever happening in our life. Right. I don't know. What do you think? I feel like life is like, part of the beauty of life is that we're given these challenges over and over again, where life says, hey, here's something really hard and uncomfortable, and how are you going to respond to this? And we can't really avoid those. Like we have to learn how to accept those into our lives and how to deal with it and in a healthy, proactive way. Right.
Absolutely.
And there's different degrees of the way that life can, throw a punch mm-hmm. at us. And it doesn't have to be the worst, most traumatic thing. I whenever my mom died, people would come to me and say, like, I can't imagine what that feels like. And I'm like, I'm sure you can. We can feel a similar way to a loss of a right. dog or a lot. And this isn't meant to downplay the pain that comes from losing your mother, but like the way that we feel as humans is very connected. It's not like we're separated based right. on like, something worse happened to me, so therefore, or something that happened to me isn't as bad as what happened to somebody else, so therefore I shouldn't be complaining about it, or I should just be okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm curious, what do y'all think about this?
I'll go ahead and jump in. It's so funny because I think one of the things, that especially in our culture, is that we have this range of emotions, and we tend to, this side of the scale are the bad, dark emotions, and this side of the scale are the happy, joyful emotions. But emotions all come from the same place. They all come from part of the human experience, and they don't exist, in a vacuum. And so understanding that it's all, that the bad emotions, bad, and I say that with quotes because there are no such thing. Part of the human experience is to know that those emotions are okay, because sometimes we judge the emotion, like I shouldn't be feeling this sad, or I am feeling this sad and this is bad. And so sometimes taking the actual judgment or the actual social idea about what the emotion is off of it can help you go, okay, this is grief. And in Tyler's example, and I can relate to Tyler, I lost my mom as well. This is grief, and it's not a bad emotion. It's an emotion of transition. It's an emotion of processing. Take the bad off of the emotion, or this is anger. Anger's not a bad emotion. Oh my gosh. Anger sometimes is a call to action, right? Anger sometimes is get off the couch and fight for something, right? Sometimes anger lets you know where your compass is. Like, this really pisses me off. Well, if something really pisses me off, then I know I have a deep conviction about something. Or this really pisses me off and I need to figure out why I'm so triggered by something that, isn't supposed to, So sometimes I like to think of our emotions more as like, they're a compass. They're a really, really great compass. And so if we can accept all of our emotions instead of just, the good ones, don't judge them, kind of pull them in as a compass. Sometimes that helps, just reframing what they are. Because if you shove down grief, anger, resentment, it's the same box that joy, happiness, and love come from, so you can't compartmentalize them. You have to feel all of your emotions. You have to express, fully take in all of your emotions. And sometimes just letting you know that it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad, that it's part of the human experience. And all of us go through it. Some of us are better at hiding it than others. Sometimes that helps because we tend to be like, what the hell? This sucks. And it does suck. And so it's okay to be like, this really sucks, burying a parent really effing sucks, and that's okay. And that's okay. And so having, just changing your perspective about emotions sometimes, it was good for me to know that when I was going through the grief with my mom, I was able to say, I'm supposed to feel like shit. This is really, really crummy. And I'm supposed to feel this way instead of, I can't feel this way. I got to get past feeling this way. I need to shake this off. I'm telling you, you are not shaking that shit off. It's a process to go through the grief. So knowing that it's okay to be there and knowing that you can move through it too, that's just one comment. That I've got.
Yeah, these are all great points, Stephanie. And I think a big takeaway that I take from that is just to not be fighting our emotions while we're going through something, right? The sooner we can accept it and be with it, the sooner we can get on to healing and growing versus being stuck and stagnant in that place, right?
Yeah.
Shannon, what do you think, Shannon?
I think a lot of things. I'm currently going through the grieving process right now, not with a parent, but not a family member. And one thing I've noticed in processing this with family is we're all, bio individuality. We've brought this up before. Yeah. The way I grieve and the way I express emotions will be different than my parents, different than my brother, different than my cousins. And that's okay. I learned recently that the way that I have expressed emotions isn't necessarily comfortable for others. So honoring myself and honoring them, what does that look like? And I just had to excuse myself from those who would be uncomfortable and go cry and cry hard and blow my nose and put cold water on my face out at a restaurant, out at lunch. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to try and hold this back because holding this in is going to explode later. And there's nothing wrong with the way I'm feeling at all. I don't judge me. I would be feeling different if I had a different relationship with this person. But this person means the world to me. Yeah. So of course I'm upset. And I'm going to embrace that I'm upset. In other cultures, they would tear their clothes and wail.
Yeah.
You know, they let it all out. They embraced it. The louder they wailed, the more important this person was to them.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, man, I wish we could bring that back. So I could use I could use a good yelling session.
That's a really great point, because it is a culture by culture, thing, the way people express, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to clarify for the people listening, like, this doesn't necessarily mean you had to have lost a relative or lost somebody in that case. Like, it could come from so many different ways. When I found out that I got a big tax bill, and felt extremely uncomfortable, and it challenged me, like that can be an example of a time in your life where you could be going through something that, like what we're talking about today. Or even, I remember being 19 years old, maybe I was 20. I was 20, I think. And my whole theme through my teenage years was that I would always say I'm never going to be somebody who works in a factory. I never want to work in a factory, just because I had a bad relationship with my mom's husband, and he worked in a factory, and he kind of brought that mindset home, and I felt like I was put in a box from a young age, and I didn't want to be put in a box. I didn't want that feeling. Well, come 20, I found myself working at a factory, and it kind of just happened on accident. I just signed up for some temporary agency, and they gave me a job. I went in for the interview, whatever. Cool. Next thing I know, I'm working at a factory, and it's been like a month, and I'm working at this factory, and I'm working next to this old guy that's like in his 80s. He can barely walk anymore. And his whole personality was that factory. Like, he didn't, he kind of represented to me almost what I could be if I stuck with this job, and nothing against anybody who works in a factory. Like, this is not that. I'm not saying that. It's just for me personally to be at that age, 20 years old, kind of relatively young age, and find myself like working in a factory like I always said I wouldn't. I remember leaving the job one day and just sitting in my car and just sobbing for an hour. I couldn't drive. I just felt like my life was over. All the best parts were done. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be this forever. And like, that's an example of kind of what we're talking about here. It's just when life feels like things aren't going in your way. It's not going the way that you imagined. Yeah. You thought that things would be so different, but here you are in this place, and you're like, how the hell did I end up here? Mm-hmm. How did this happen? What happened? And where do I go from here? What's the right move? How do I make sure that I come back from this, or can I ever come back from this? There's a lot of different ways it could possibly look. And in those moments, from what Shannon and Stephanie, what you both have said here is, being able to stop fighting our own emotions to begin with, so that we can start to interact and feel and live with those emotions. It's only temporary. It's not like you're going to feel this way forever, but the more that you can just really live it to the fullest of your ability and feel it to the fullest of your ability. And then being able to process those emotions in a way that's natural to you, instead of feeling like you have to do it a certain way, like you see other people doing it, really finding your way of, and really like being honest with yourself too, and saying, is this really serving me? Like, cause I can already hear 19, 20-year-old Tyler saying, well, my way of dealing with it is getting really drunk. Right. And it's like, all right, if I would have sat down with myself and really considered that question, is this really what's serving me? I would have pretty easily come to the conclusion that no, this isn't serving me. I'm numbing and I'm avoiding feelings by going that route. But
if you need to get drunk one night and then come back to it the next day, don't judge what you use for relief in the moment too. Just recognize it as relief in the moment, and then circle back around and allow yourself to process.
This episode is brought to you by oxygen and carbon dioxide. Breathe deep, breathe slow. Are you tired of nagging headaches, body pains, and feeling like you've been steamrolled by 2 p.m.? Ugh. Want to feel more alive with a clearer mind, voice, and skin?
Yep.
And not to mention getting rid of that pesky BO when the deodorant starts to wear off?
Ew.
Introducing to you today, water. Did you know that 75% of American adults are chronically dehydrated? And did you know that majority of people who are dehydrated think that they actually are hydrated? That means most people are not drinking enough water. But if they did, and they realized how much of a massive difference it makes in how they feel to be hydrated, they would realize that water can change their life. So drink more water. Aim for 96 fluid ounces per day minimum for adults. Side effects include peeing more often the first couple of weeks, but don't worry, it will slow down soon. I know I should really drink less caffeine. I just wish there was some way of getting energy in the morning without a coffee. Ah, the sun! Wait a minute. I feel good. Especially when I close my eyes and stare at the sun through my eyelids. Wow, this is great! I think I'm ready to crush this day now. Thanks, sun. The Sun. Use it for free, with care. Hey y'all, hope you've enjoyed these goofy little commercials. The information is all accurate and valid, so please use the tips we shared. Even though we're having fun and being silly recording them, they're still 100% meant to support you and entertain you. We'll be getting back to the show in just a minute, but first, I want to really encourage you to join our free community on Facebook. It's called the Powerful People Community, and it's a place where you can interact with other listeners of the show, including me, our other coaches and co-hosts and everybody. And it's a place where you can ask questions publicly or anonymously. You can request episode topics, you can share your story, and celebrate with a group of really amazing people who will also be celebrating you. So we really hope to see you in the community. We think we're building something really special because we believe when you bring together a group of powerful people, there's just so many great things we can do in this world, more than we could do on our own. So we're building a special community and we hope to talk to you there soon. Now, let's get back to the show. It's never too late, right? Like sometimes we think, oh, I messed up, therefore throw it all away. I give up. It's over. And I talked to a buddy of mine reached out to me the other day, and he a good friend of mine, he lives in London, and he reached out to me and he's like, man, I really messed up and I don't see how I can come back from this. And I was like, it alarmed me. And I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? What happened? What do you need? And he's like, man, I've gone 100, I think he said I went 172 days without drinking, completely sober. And I got really drunk tonight and I ruined it. And I was like, dude, what? Wait a minute. All right. Yeah. Okay. I understand that you're disappointed in yourself and that you had this idea of just being perfect, like completely sober, not drinking at all during this time. But the fact that you drank today does not take away the fact that you just went 172 days without drinking.
Yeah. Something to celebrate.
And celebrate that. Exactly. That's not the end. That's not you didn't fall off the wagon, right? Because the moment you start drinking that next day, you're not starting back over at zero. You're still building on top of all that momentum you've already made. And we have a tendency sometimes to take something that's bad and make it worse because of how we think and feel about it. And we make decisions based on those triggered emotions, right? So I think that a really powerful thing for us is to, like, when we're going through those thoughts and those feelings, is to let ourselves feel it to the fullest that we need to and deal with it however we need to deal with it. And it looks at 100 different ways for any different person.
Without judgment. Without
judgment. And if we need to judge ourselves for a moment, like, that's fine. Like, yes, I've definitely had moments where I'm like, oh, you're so stupid, Tyler. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, all right, I'm not actually stupid and I made a mistake. Here's why I did that. And here's what I can do going forward. But just being able to bring yourself back to why this is important to you. Mm-hmm. If something's not going the way that you want in your life, like, we have to really get tuned into why this matters to us and why it's important to us to fix this, because we could easily give up and just put our hands in the air and just be like, you know what, whatever happens from here, I don't care anymore because I just keep getting screwed no matter what. But the point is that it can get worse. And so you really don't want to like throw your hands up and let go for too long, because it can get worse if you're not proactive and intentional.
Yeah. Use it as a compass. You know, if I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, this is saying something about, you know, where I am and where I want to go. Use it as a compass, you know.
I'm feeling this way because I care. Right? It matters to me.
Exactly. Super important. Because you do care. And, you know, I had those conversations recently, you know. Well, this matters to me. That's why I'm reacting this way. You know, my job matters to me. My future matters to me. My health matters to me. My loved ones, my family, they matter to me. You know, and you pile all of that on. All of these things are happening or not happening. And then what? Then what? You know, and as Tyler was saying, you know, no, it's not the end of the world. You didn't fail. You're starting in a different place now. You're starting with experience. You're starting with compassion for yourself of, okay, hey, I've just found a pothole, a trigger, or something or another, right? But now that you've learned that experience, moving forward, you can work to, you know, remove that obstacle so it doesn't come up again.
Yeah.
So, I think it really starts with admitting that you care. Because I think I see so many people, and myself included, whenever I'm in this like highly emotional state, or I feel like things are against me, my guard goes up. And sometimes it's really hard to admit that this really matters to me and this is important. And I need this for me to focus on this and make it right. Because if you're not in tune with the fact that you really care and this is really important to you, and you wouldn't be feeling this way if it wasn't important to you and you didn't really care. If it wasn't for that, then it would just be too easy to do nothing and not like take the little steps back on like up towards growth. Right.
And I think we need to talk about that. Like, what are the little steps? And I think they're going to be, you know, unique to everybody. So, you know, what are the little steps? What are the little steps that you take, Shannon? What are the little steps? Because it's going to be different for everybody. And I think if we share what some of our tools are for those little steps back, you know, that might be helpful as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to underline just the importance of caring, and that it's good. It's really good to care. It's really easy to say that we don't whenever things get tough and just find a way to be okay with it. But I think it's important for us to really honor that part of ourselves that really does want to see a difference and make a difference.
And that's why we feel so bad, because we do care so much. Like it's kind of a, you know, that's exactly it. If we didn't feel so bad, it's, you know, it is because we cared so much. So sometimes if you can actually reframe that, like, that reason I feel so bad is because I do care so much about this situation, this person, this, you know, whatever it is. And so, you know, sometimes the greater the upset, the greater the caring. And that's a great way to look at it, Tyler. I appreciate that perspective.
And just to preface like these little steps that we're going to talk about, and really, they really are little steps. To make a big difference, a big change in how we feel and what our world looks like around us and how we interact with our world around us, it doesn't take such massive, drastic overhaul changes.
Right.
It really just takes consistently working on like one little thing, and then building on top of that as it becomes a habit, which I know is a kind of a cliche thing to say. Because I'm sure a lot of people have heard, oh, you got to do the habit. You got to just do something for 14 days or 21 days or 30 days or whatever to make it a habit. And then you're good. And life is all ponies and rainbows. But the reality of what that actually means, what that actually is saying is that when it becomes a habit, when you just focus on a little thing over and over and over and over again every single day, it really just becomes something that you don't think about. You're just automatically doing it, and you're doing something automatically that's helping you to feel really good and to feel like there's hope for the future. Because when you can do this one thing really good, really well, then it starts to make other things seem a lot more possible. And now you're looking out into the future and thinking, whoa, okay, I see potential. I see hope. I see the light. This could go right. Right. So just really, really underlining that as well, that these are small, consistent steps to build habits. And habits isn't just some cliche word that you hear around. It's something that really gives you a sense of purpose once you start living with habits, healthy, empowering habits. Right. And so with that, now I'm ready to talk small steps.
And I just want to add one thing. Understand that all emotions are on a scale, right? So if my goal is joy and happiness, and I'm way over here in despair and depression, I have to step on all the stones in between to get to joy and happiness. And I think what derails a lot of people is that they're over here in despair, depression, and they're reaching for joy and happiness, and it seems so far away. But just recognizing that the next stone over, might be anger, because if you go from despair to anger, now there's a little bit of fire behind that. You know what I mean? I'm pissed off. At first, I just didn't care. I didn't care about anything. But I got to get pissed off and step on that stone of anger to get to that stone of resentment, to get to that stone of action, to get to that, you know what I mean? So there's this place, and sometimes you can bridge that in one day, and sometimes it takes longer. So understanding that there's a ladder you have to climb, that this emotional scale, you actually have to go up that emotional scale. You can't jump from despair to joy and happiness, but you can sure get pissed off about something, and then you can feel resentment about it, and then you can feel, and then you can be complacent about it. You can move up, and understand that sometimes gives people permission to get pissed off, or sometimes gives people permission to get really, really sad, because sometimes sadness is processing the despair, right? So if you realize that change is a stepping stone up to joy and happiness, then allow yourself to be there, because it's just like anything else. You got to go, even in a car, you got to go from 0 to 90. You can't skip 10 miles per hour if you want to be at 90. You got to get to 10 miles per hour, and go up from there. So just remember, that's kind of the way emotions work, in our psyche and, in our emotions. And it can be done very quickly. We see it all the time with toddlers. Anybody that's ever been with a toddler, the screaming, the kicking, the what, and then all of a sudden, and then they start to dry up, and then, that slows down. I mean, it can go very quickly, but just recognize that there might be a little bit of stepping stone that you're doing, and it's okay to be on the next stone. Even if you didn't reach happiness, you moved past despair.
An evolution in emotions, is a good sign. It's a good sign if you notice that your emotions are evolving constantly.
Yeah. Even if they're not the quote unquote good emotions, they're still emotions,
And just to take it one more inception layer deep, I completely agree with everything you said. And I believe that it's possible to feel two completely different emotions at the same time.
Oh, all the time.
Right. You can feel despair about one area of your life or one thought that's causing you to feel despair. And you can hyper focus on that thought or feeling so that you feel like all you feel is despair. But if you just look around a little bit, you notice another part of your life that brings you happiness or gratitude or maybe just laughter or something. Like, it's possible to feel despair and happy at the same time.
Absolutely.
And that's the perspective. I think that a lot of people believe that happiness is the lack of despair. I don't believe that. I believe that you can feel happy and despair at the same time. It's just, which one are you going to put your attention towards in this moment?
A full spectrum of emotions, and we all have them. Absolutely.
Cool. So what are these small steps? What are we doing whenever we just feel like the world has got us down?
All right, Shannon, let's hear it.
I think it'll be 2 years. I was seeing a pain management doctor. And went through her program, and I'm going to share a couple of sentences, so grab your pen and paper. Small actions can add up to real change in my health. Getting back to what we talked about a little bit, just taking those small steps. And I had to repeat this phrase almost daily. The other one is curiosity and compassion more than condemnation and comparison. So, like I was saying,
repeat that. That was really good, Shannon. Say that again.
Curiosity and compassion more than condemnation and comparison. So in Dr. Irene's program, she had us repeating these out loud 5 times as part of our daily exercise. And it did help. Now, the first day and you're there for pain management. If you're going to a doctor for pain management, man, it's past ibuprofen, right? Yeah. And the first couple of days, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. But you get into doing that for 6 weeks and you start to see the change and you don't hate the pain anymore. And now you're curious. What is my body telling me? What's it crying out for? What's it need? Does it need rest? Maybe it needs to feel all of those emotions. I've been shoving them and my chest is heavy and my muscles are heavy and everything's heavy. It's harder to breathe. And maybe my body is screaming, I just need to feel this and not be judged for feeling this. Right? So
that's good.
There's just a couple of small steps. It doesn't cost anything to say these phrases 5 times a day. It's not rocket science, and it is a very small step, and it is super helpful. And I use it in my program with Dr. Irene's permission, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's been tremendous.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, it sounds like it's just like a moment of stopping for a second and just kind of checking in and really getting clear on where you're at right now and setting your mind for the way that you want to approach this or think about this or feel about this. Yeah. But I like that your first step isn't go do something. Your first step is to, no, wait, hold on. Let's check in and let's say these statements so I can frame my mindset here and let me feel what I'm actually feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie, sure. What do you think on this?
I read one time, I was reading a book. What is the doctor's name? I want to say her last name was Bolt. I was going to give the book. It's probably sitting on my shelf back here. If you let me go dig, I could go do it. But one of the things that I remember reading, I was reading about the brain. My dad had a stroke, and this was 20 years ago. And I was determined that we were going to, rebuild his brain, after this massive stroke that he had. And so I did all sorts of research on the brain and how it works. And one of the things that really stuck with me is that our thoughts work on a 60-second cycle. And so once you start a thought, my life sucks, that thought is on a 60-second loop in the brain. And what this book said was that if you know that you've got 60 seconds before it starts to loop again, my life sucks, my life sucks, my life sucks, my life sucks. But this book said that it's 60 seconds for that loop. It's a neural pathway that occurs that when you realize you've done that, my life sucks, you now have 60 seconds to correct that before it starts to repeat on the loop. And I thought that was fascinating because 60 seconds, you guys, I could set my timer right now and we could all just wait for 60 seconds. 60 seconds is a long time. Mm-hmm. And I remember that struck me huge, that I had 60 seconds to interrupt, to put something new in the field. So my life sucks. And then I've got 60 seconds to be like, okay, maybe parts of my life suck, but not all of them suck. Well, actually, I do have a really great dog. My dog is great. He gives me licks for free. Well, the sun came out today. I really am struggling to find something great to say, but but I'm still breathing. I'm bringing, like it doesn't have to be this great thing. Like I'm a millionaire, right? But it's just something to interrupt, my life sucks, or whatever the thought is, because we create neural pathways. And I thought that was really profound. So recognize that when you have those really gloomy thoughts, and most of them get on and repeat, that when you have them, you've got 60 seconds to stop them from creating, this neural pathway, and the way that she described the neural pathways, she said that, if water's going to run down the side of a hill, it's going to look for the crevice, and that's where it's going to form to create a little creek, right? Or a little stream. And so the more times you have a thought, the more times you dig in and you create a crevice, you create a crack. And so what you want to do is you want to interrupt those thoughts so they don't create that crevice, so that the thoughts, want to flow back in there again. And so one of the things that I always tell people is that, when you recognize that you're having those thoughts, try to throw something in there just to interrupt them. And it could be something like peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It doesn't have to be a really positive thing, because you know what? When you're down there in the shit, it is hard to come up with a positive thing. I mean, it just is. When your body hurts so bad you can't breathe, when grief is so heavy you can't take oxygen into your lungs, when stress is so much that you don't know if you're going to get through the day, or even that you want to get through the day, it is hard to find a positive thought. So interrupt it with something something stupid or sweet or fun, like Fred Flintstone. Have a safe word that you throw in the middle of all this, Fred Flintstone, Fred Flintstone, Fred Flintstone, or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. If you have that rescue word before you get yourself into these dark places, and if not, steal them from me, Fred Flintstone, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, running puppies or whatever, because you want to stop the loop. You want to stop it from creating a crevice so that it becomes a natural thought of yours,
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one of the things that I think is something quick and easy. And I love how Shannon said, instead of criticize and compare, and condemnation, I think was the word that you used, we're going to be curious about it. All of those things just kind of stop you in that moment, whether we're being curious or whether we're screaming Fred Flintstone, we're stopping that thought process. And I think that's super important. And it's something that it's a tool that anybody can do. So just keep in mind, it really is valuable. And you do have time to turn it around and correct it. That's just one simple thing.
Yeah. The theme, it's interesting. Like the first thing that both of you said, the theme between that is really becoming aware of our thoughts and reframing our thoughts. Because it bears so much impact, right? It bears so much weight on or lightness on how we go about it from here.
Yeah.
But in order to catch those thoughts, I think that we experience things in a certain order, right? Well, and everybody's different, but some people experience their emotions first and then have to through feeling their emotions, figure out what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people, sometimes they experience their thoughts first, and through their thoughts do some uncovering to figure out what they're feeling. Right. So,
and some people do first, they create an action, they might punch a wall, for example. That's now they're doing, and then they have to reassess and go, okay, why am I feeling? How do I think about that? So I think you're right, Tyler. I think everybody kind of, whether it's feeling first or thinking first or doing first, we all do it in our own unique way. And then we have to pull in the others to evaluate it.
Yeah. I'm glad you say that, because you're right. Like there are people that have a physical response to things first, right?
Right.
I'll say this, and this is coming from somebody who very strongly believes in bio-individuality and, everybody has their own way of doing things. Like I very strongly believe that. I also very strongly believe that it's up to us to train ourselves to not physically respond to things when we're in a heightened state like that, to become triggered and then immediately, whether it's punch a wall or run or do something like that. I think that it's a great challenge for a lot of people, and I'm open to being wrong with this, but
Yeah.
I think that it's a great challenge for us to, there's this book called The Wedge or The Gap, one of the two. And the idea is that between trigger and reaction, we want to put a wedge. We want to put a gap to where, like, when something happens, we can stop for a moment and breathe and accept it. Like,
right.
Really let it sink in that, okay, this is real. This isn't this isn't a dream.
Yeah.
This isn't something that I can wish away.
Yeah.
It's real. And I need to stop for a moment before I yell or jump or punch or whatever. Right.
Right.
And,
but I'm going to disagree with you in the fact that there are three different ways that humans take in. We take, how we take in information. Some of us take in through thinking, some of us take it in through feeling, and some of us take it in through doing. And I agree with you that there needs to be a way to express the doing that doesn't involve harm for other people. But if that means you need to get up and walk out, then you get up and walk out. And you say, I'll be back. I'm going to walk around, I'm going to walk around the building. If you're familiar with the Enneagram, it talks about how there's three different responses that humans have. Even in the Bible, we talk about thought, word, and deed. There's three different ways that we perceive information, three different ways that we take information in, and and then we use the other ones too, right? But if my initial is the doing, then I'm going to have to stand up and walk. I'm going to have to walk away from you. I'm going to have to pace. I'm going to have to do something. If my initial is feeling, then I might have to cry. I might, if my initial is thinking, I might start, doing. So recognizing that the doing doesn't have to be a harmful thing to somebody, but the actual physical movement might be a natural way that the person takes in that information. And as long as it doesn't bring harm to another, then by all means, run around the block. I'll see you in a minute.
I totally agree. And just for the sake of debate, I totally agree that, I totally agree that if you need space, then you have to take your space and honor that part of yourself that totally needs that. And also, if physical activity is helpful if I'm a physical activity person, right? If I'm feeling something, I go play basketball or I lift weights, and so I totally agree with that. The question is, in what manner do you walk out of that room whenever you're triggered and you're the kind of person who has to go for a walk? Especially if there's another person involved in that moment, right? I think that no matter what, and I'm totally happy if we leave this conversation and we both agree to disagree on it.
Yeah,
it's totally cool. And I'm open as well, but I just want to make this point that I think that still being able to take a breath really quick and then say, hey, I need to go for a walk and really sort through this, instead of just being very triggered exit, right? I still think that there's that moment, that opportunity in there for the wedge between that trigger.
Yeah.
Ideally, in a perfect world, there's a clear answer to that. But I don't think we live in that reality. I think it depends on the circumstances. It depends on the person. When I am frustrated with my husband and how I react to him is going to be completely different and how I'm frustrated and react to my boss, as it should be. There's a professional relationship and a personal relationship. Physical, emotional, whatever, part of it comes down to is just being willing to be honest with yourself and getting to know yourself. I went through a workbook/book called Unglued by Lisa Terkeuse, I think is how you say her name, about 11, 12 years ago. I was feeling all my feels up to and including depression. Why am I here? How did I get here? This isn't what I chose, all the things. And what that book taught me was exhaustion. There was no way in the world that I was not going to be triggered if I was tired. Everything was going to bother me if I was tired. So I learned through that one thing I absolutely cannot give up is sleep. When stuff is hitting the fan and is being flung all over the room and I have a million things to do in 5 minutes, I can't give up sleep. Something's just going to have to not be done. Because if I don't get sleep, I'm going to lose all of my stuff. It's gonna be all of my stuff on that fan being all over everybody.
Yeah. And that goes back into that.
Not cool.
That goes back into that self-care and that self-awareness. Shannon needs sleep. Shannon knows that she needs sleep. And by the way, I think that's true for everybody that walks on the planet. I know you guys talked about sleep last week, but sleep is vitally important, for our mental and emotional and psychological state. So that's a really good point to bring up. Sometimes go lay down, like we do with our toddlers. Yeah, go lay down. Yeah. It's time for
you're
rest.
Tired. Yeah, it's time for that.
Yeah, you're tired. Yeah, go lay down. Go lay down. Get some rest.
Coffee doesn't necessarily make all the things better. Sometimes it's really the sleep.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's a really good point.
I think as we talk about this, it makes sense to me that it's important to go through all of these things, right? Depending on how you respond, right? How we talked about people first feel emotions, or some people first go to a physical activity or action. Some people go to their thoughts.
Right. They feel it in their bodies sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. I think regardless of what you experience first, I think it's really important to go through all of those.
100%. Right? That's how you heal. If you're a feeler, then you need to start thinking and doing. If you're a thinker, you need to start feeling and doing. You know what I mean? If you're a doer, you need to start feeling and thinking. Yes, it's the balance of all of those gifts. It's the balance of all of those gifts. Thinking, feeling, and doing. Absolutely. So you might ask yourself if I'm Shannon said earlier, she's like, I feel a lot. Feeling is a strong way that she responds to her life and her environment. Correct me if I said that wrong, Shannon, but you mentioned that, you have a lot of feelings. And so moving through the thinking and doing, or the doing and thinking, is balancing her. If you're the physical person, that's always doing the doing. My mom was doing the doing. When my mom would get upset, she would start cleaning house. She'd start rearranging furniture. She'd start sorting out closets. She would never stop and feel her emotions. She was just doing. She was just doing. This was her way of coping. She was just doing. And it never allowed her to stop and feel, or think about them. So for her, healing was to stop the doing, and to maybe feel. Maybe do a little bit more of what Shannon does, feel those emotions and express them and bring them in, and then for your thinker, who's just chronically thinking, maybe they need to be do some doing and feeling. But I think it's the balance of all three that allows us to heal. It's not one over the other. It's our lives are expressed in thought, word, and deed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we could summarize, up to this point, right? Whenever we find ourselves in these places in life, to be able to stop, feel, think, rest, and then do something. And do something can be interpreted a few different ways, right? One, we want to do something about what we're not happy with in our life, whatever it is that we want to improve upon or change or whatever it is. We want to start taking little actions towards doing that. But then also on the other hand, doing to me is also some sort of physical movement. We've got to go for a walk. We've got to run or hit a punching bag or dance or something to move our body, because that's another way to move that energy so that we get out of stagnant and into flowing and moving.
That's the doing. That's the doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a two-part, right? I think of doing as physical movement for your body to move your energy. And then also making a plan and starting to do the things that are going to help you get out of this place in life and into where you want to be in life. Right.
Shannon, you had something to say?
A couple of things. I think it was Stephanie, you were the one that was talking to us about shaking it off in another episode, right?
Shake like a duck. Yeah, that is fantastic. Shake like a duck. Woo! Yeah, sometimes your whole body gets this surge of emotions, and sometimes, just shake like a duck. Yeah, that's fantastic for processing that.
To Tyler's point, I think that's when coaching comes in. So just a quick story. It's mid-September. The past 45 days, I completed 52 coaching sessions in preparation for and BHWC exam in November.
Yes.
And
Great job.
thank you. And the second to last day of my coaching sessions, I cried in a couple of them because they were so amazing. You know, we talked about, to your point, Tyler, about doing and then taking action, talking through all of the stuff that's been going on in life lately with all of these other people who also have all of the things going on in life. There's not a one of us that are in our 20s and like college, like traditional student. We are all adults with families and all kinds of things going on. And to be able to talk it through with somebody was awesome. And I'm in counseling because there's a lot going on. Okay. And so I'm doing everything I can for self-care. It wasn't just telling me how to process. It was asking me questions, you know, so where do I find you today? And one of my favorites is, where do I find you today? And describe it as a holiday. Another one is, where do I find you today? And describe it as a body of water. So then I had to, okay, what bodies of water do I know? Being from Midwest United States, not a whole lot. And then why do I feel like that body of water? And the one I described was the Gulf of Mexico. You know, we got the muddy Mississippi feeding into it, but if you get far enough, it's actually pretty. But right now I'm like at the mouth near New Orleans, and everything's a mess. Everything's being dumped in all at once. And it's a mess. And that's where I am today. That's where you find Shannon. And it was just so helpful in having someone who's not in the thick of it, who's not feeling it all with me, asking me some open questions to help me process, you know, get that thinking part going too, not just the emotions, but the thinking part activated. I'm feeling this. This is why. Okay, now they have a goal. What is my goal? What is something small and tangible that I'm going to feel accomplished?
Yeah.
I'm going to feel settled. I'm going to feel peace. It doesn't mean that all of this stuff's going to stop, because it's not. But man, I can't tell you how awesome it was. 45 days.
That's
of
amazing.
Being coached, intensely coached. It was great. So
yeah, and that's such a good
toot
point.
The coach's
health
horn,
coaches,
but I'm going to toot our horn. I mean,
shameless
really
plug for health coaches, but you know, and therapists, you know, I mean, and friends that have been vetted, because not all friends are the best person to unload on, right? You know, make sure that you vet the person that you're going to, you know, share that with. Yeah, we're meant to connect. You know, we're meant to share. So that's awesome to hear your experience, Shannon.
Yeah, we need to be able, we need the accountability, but we also need the perspective, right? Just, have you ever gone to a friend or somebody and said, hey, I need your help on this. I'm wondering what you think. This, and oh yeah, wait, I figured it out. Okay, I'm good. I don't need you to say anything. Yeah. Right? It's like a flow that we get when we start to interact with other people. And I think that that's an important thing, is that we enroll other people into our healing and our journey. And it is healing, right? We don't always consider it that way, right? Yeah. Whenever I first got the really big tax bill and I felt like, oh my God, my life's over. It was a healing process that I had to go through. And I tried to do it on my own for the longest time, and just kept feeling like I was running against a brick wall. Until finally I started reaching out to people who I trusted and just saying like, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm thinking, and this is what I think I'm going to do about it. And I feel really crappy right now. I feel like I don't know where the end is. And but bringing other people in on it is so, so important.
It's the best. I mean,
I'd like to ask Tyler, you know, Stephanie, you said bringing in good friends that are vetted. Absolutely. So Tyler, can you walk us through, in this scenario, what were some of the qualifications, if you will, that you were looking for in a person that you needed to talk this through with?
Yeah. The very first thing for me is just, because it's not just one person, like it's a few people, right? And the very first thing was just somebody who cared. Like I just needed like my aunt who was going to be like, oh, honey, and it's okay. And you know what I mean? Like at first you need some love, right?
Yeah.
You just need, like, you don't need logic. You don't need hard truths. You need some love at first. And once you start to feel that love and your tank starts to fill up a little bit, you're just kind of looking around, or I'm just kind of looking around like, who do I trust? Who do I have a good relationship with to where it doesn't feel like I'm just coming with an ask out of nowhere, like, I'm an overthinker, so maybe I'm not the best person. I overthink things. I think the best way to do it is just tell everybody. But be very, have really strong boundaries of like who you are actually taking advice from. As far as who we're taking advice from, I just started reaching out to people who were in positions where I wanted to be. I wasn't reaching out to people who are my age. I was reaching out to my old marketing director for a company I worked at 4 years ago, who's in his late 50s, has a family, makes really good money, and has been through some really hard times in his life. I was like, okay, well, there's the perfect person.
Right.
And the funny thing is, like I said, I'm an overthinker. I knew who that person was for the longest time. And I went years without reaching out to him until finally one day I'm like, you know what, I'm going to reach out to him. Even though I knew it for years. I knew that this is the guy that I wanted to consult with, that I wanted to confide in, that I wanted to ask for help with, hat in hand. And I just didn't do it for the longest time. And then finally, when I did it, it was amazing. I mean, we got on a call, we talked through things. He filled me with confidence. He helped me see how people have, like, it's very common that people go into this type of situation and they come out on the other side and they're doing really well. And he's like, oh, I remember one time when I went through something like that. And it's like, okay, I feel much better now. Yeah. And then also another thing is just this group, this accountability group that we started, and kind of really the reason why we started this podcast is just started getting on calls I think it was every 2 weeks for a year and a half, getting on live calls with a group of people and being committed to the future, not just the present or the past, right? It's easy to be like, I go for the love to feel okay with what happened in the past because there's nothing I can do about the past, but I just need to feel okay about it. I go to the person who like is like my mentor or coach, like, get a coach. My mentor also is a life coach, right? He's a professional coach. He's not just some guy who, right? So get a coach, a real coach who you can trust. And then that's helping me get through like today, right now. But then with everybody in this group, everybody that's on this podcast and everybody that's in the group behind the scenes, who the listeners of this podcast don't even know yet, that's what, like, I mean, that gave me so much. This is what's giving me hope. We're working on projects. We're making plans for things to build and to grow and make impact. And it's no longer just about paying my tax bill every month. Now it's like, we're launching a podcast and we're starting an online community and building a coaching program and like investing towards the future, because I have a future. And when you're going through something really tough, it's hard. It's easy to think that you don't have a future. Like, this is it. This is the end.
Yeah. So
we need to keep building a future constantly. Right.
And I think connection is, I think we heal through our connections. I just do. I think we heal through our connections to ourselves, our connections to others, our connections to source. That is the way we heal. We heal through our connections. And I think having somebody, Shannon just talked about doing the last 45 days, where she was being coached. She was being talked to by a coach, being talked to, she also has a therapist. And Tyler just talked about friends, friends that he could reach out to, loved ones that he could reach out to. It is so incredible to be able to reach out to somebody. But one of the things I want to tell people is that in both these situations, I'm pointing out that Shannon and Tyler, they both asked permission, or there was a what's the word I'm looking for? You don't just want to call somebody and just dump on them, right? You don't want to just out of the blue, because the person's not in the right frame of mind. They might be in the middle of something themselves and you don't know about it, because a lot of people are very private about their traumas. And so, when you do reach out to somebody, make sure that you reach out with them with a sincere ask. Hey, I'm struggling. If it's a health coach, we know that that's what we're going to do. If it's a therapist, we know that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about my stuff. We're going to talk about my shit, right? But if it's a friend or a family member, make sure that you have permission and a space, a boundaried space for that. So, make sure you say, hey, I'm really struggling with something and I need somebody's advice or I need somebody's support. Is there a time that you could truly be available to talk? And maybe it's 10 days from now, because that person's so busy. Well, at the end of those 10 days, that person's going to be like, okay, Stephanie, you've got me. What do you want to talk about? So, because sometimes people will tell me, well, I reach out to somebody, nobody wants to listen to me. Well, nobody wants to be dumped upon because they're not ready to hold that space for you. But make sure that you do the ask permission. If it's with a professional like a health coach or a therapist, that's set a time. But do the same thing with your loved ones, your friends, and your family. Make sure that you have that set time so that they can then create the space for you. 100%. And that's when I say you need to vet that person, because there are some people that can create that space for you, and it might be different. Like Tyler said, he reached out to somebody that was successful and had been through some stuff. If I've got some stuff with, parenting, I might reach out to somebody that's been a parent before. But if I have some stuff, with grieving, I might reach out to somebody that like Tyler, who lost his mom too. And I'd be like, Tyler, I don't know why it's been 4 years, but I suddenly can't get past the fact that I lost my mom. And I know that Tyler lost his mom, and he's going to be able to hold a space for me in a way that somebody else might not be able to, And so that's when I say vet your person, that's what I mean. Make sure it's somebody that can hold that space for you and whatever that looks like.
And if it is a good friend who's not an expert per se on the matter, you could always, when you're reaching out for the ask for help, you can always specify. I even with Sean, the person who I reached out to for support, our first call, I'd send him a message, say, hey, I've been really struggling with some stuff lately, and I just really feel like you're the person I'd love to talk to about this, and just wondering, could we schedule some time to have a conversation, please? Like 20 minutes. He was like, more than happy to. Of course, let's set it up, schedule it. When we got on that call, one of the first things I asked him was, hey, he's like, what do you need from me? What can I do to support you right now? And I said, can you please just listen and ask questions and don't give me any advice? Like, don't tell me what to do. Just please listen and ask questions and help get clarity on this first before. So a friend can do that even if they're not an expert, right? So as long as you're clear with your ask and let them know that you're not looking for advice, but what you're looking for is just somebody to please listen and ask questions.
Yeah.
And just let me talk and let me share.
Yeah. And
just to summarize really, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I just want to speak one more thing, because I know there's going to be people out there in our audience right now who don't have anybody. They can't afford a therapist. They can't afford a health coach, and they don't have people to connect to. And they do feel completely all alone. And the only thing that they're listening to is our voice right now. I encourage those people to find something outside themselves to talk either out loud or with a pen or pad. Oftentimes I'll say, if it's a deceased loved one, then sit down and talk to, grandma, I need to tell you what's going on. If your grandma's been, or write to somebody. My mom's deceased, but maybe I would write to my mom, dear mom, I need to tell you the shit that's going on. There's something so powerful about verbally or through the written word, getting it out, actually talking it out. And when you have somebody out there, and maybe that's a higher power for you. Maybe it's God, maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's somebody else, maybe it's a guardian angel, or maybe it's just the future version of yourself. Whatever it is, talk it out loud, literally using your vocal cords or writing it with your hand. There is something extremely powerful about getting it out there. And if you don't have someone that you can do that with, You do it on a piece of paper, or you do it out loud with somebody that you know you're talking to.
It's a great point. Yeah. I've actually had, on my mom's birthday a few years ago, had a whole conversation with her. I mean, more than an hour. And it was like we were talking on the phone. Like I felt like we were talking on the phone.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you say something, and she'd been gone, she passed away in 2016. This must have been 2020 or 2021, that I had this conversation with her. And I could hear her responses back to me. It's amazing. It's incredible. It really was like we were actually having a conversation just like this.
Absolutely.
And she gave me advice.
Yep.
She congratulated me on things that I was doing, like things that I wasn't acknowledging for myself, but she was doing for me, through me.
It's super powerful. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the same experience, Tyler. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, it doesn't have to be a deceased loved one. It could be a guardian angel. It could be, something that you believe in, that you're connected to. It could be Mother Earth, but saying it physically out loud or writing it to somebody, it's powerful. If you don't have that person in your life that you can reach out to. And even if
I'll say also that's what the Powerful People community is for. The Powerful People community is a Facebook group, and it's a space where anybody listening to the show, you're not alone, and you don't ever have to be alone through anything, because you have a community here for you that's free. You can reach any of us that are on the show in that group. You can reach our other listeners. You'll find a group of people you can share. If you make a post in the group, just sharing your thoughts or your feelings or whatever you're going through in that moment, you're going to find a group of people who really care, and they're there for you, and they're going to support. They're going to help support you.
Yeah.
So that's what that community is for as well. I'll say that also, I found a platform that is for communities. So not happening yet, but there's a chance maybe we might migrate that community off of Facebook and be more in a very, focused place for that community to grow and really thrive. So there's a possibility of some evolution there. I'll keep you all updated, but we'll definitely give plenty of notice for everybody. So for now, if you're listening to this, the Facebook group, the Powerful People community group, it's a place where you can be surrounded by people who really care about you and are bringing something special to the table, just like you do. And I'll also say that I can't believe I'm saving this like as one of the last things I'm saying in this episode, but, and I know everybody's got a different name for it, but connection with God, connection with the universe, just really understanding that there is a plan in place and you are not completely in control of that. But there's a saying, God is the best of all I'm going to butcher the statement. I can't remember how it goes, but God is in charge. God is making the plan, and God is the best of all planners. So if we can just have faith that, you know what, I'm going through this for a reason, and it's for a good reason. And I have faith that it's okay. And just the more that we can get connected to that and just understand that everything is happening for a very good reason. Even the seeming really, really bad things, and there are really bad things that are happening, there's something bigger at play that we can't see yet, but everything is in motion for a plan. It's a plan, and it's the best plan possible. And so anything that happens to us is a blessing, even if it feels like, how the hell can this possibly be a blessing? It is. I promise you it is. I promise you that it might take years before you start to realize how or why it is, but I promise you it absolutely 100% is a blessing that this is happening, and you are the person that this is meant for. You are meant to go through this because you can handle it, and you are going to take something special away from this that's going to inspire or impact other people in a different way that you can't even imagine yet. And the only way that you can just let this happen, the absolutely correct way, is to do, as we talked about in this episode, like breathe, accept, feel, think, move, rest. Yep. And then make a plan based on the intuition, because you're going to have an intuition. There's going to be something that happens that where you realize exactly what it is you need to do. There's going to come up, even if you have no idea right now what it is you need to do, there's going to come a point just by going through these steps, just by feeling, breathing, thinking, moving, sleeping, by doing these things and accepting what's going on and feeling it, at some point you're going to be like, I know what I need to do. And then that's where that's where you start doing the little things every day to keep moving that forward, pushing it forward. And if you keep doing that, that's when you're going to look back years from now and say, I see what the point was. I see exactly why that happened and why it was for the best. Cool.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts, feelings?
I can't follow
anything?
that up. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. On that point, it's a wrap.
Cool.
Very well said, Tyler.
So,
thank you.
Everybody listening, you are never alone. You are never, ever, ever alone. You've got a community here. You have people around you who love you and care about you, even if sometimes it feels like they don't. People are funny. People sometimes don't know exactly how to show that they really care for you, but they really do. And you can always reach out to those people. And I bet you that those people in your life, when you reach out to them and you talk with them openly and vulnerably, they're going to surprise you. They're going to show up for you in a way that you didn't think that they could. And if they don't, that's okay. That you know who you can go to, and you can always come to us. We're always here. So thank you so much for listening to the Holistic Health Front podcast. We are extremely grateful for you, and we are extremely grateful if you would please, if you're not already subscribed to the show, please download your favorite episodes. The thing with these podcast platforms is the way that they rank episodes is actually they carry more weight on downloads of episodes than they do on anything else. So subscribing to the show is great. That's just going to give you a notification and show you like anytime we put out a new episode, which is every week. But downloading the episode is what's going to indicate to this platform that this is a really good show and that they should show us to more people. So if you like the show, please download your favorite episodes. Please leave a review and let everybody know what you think. And we'll see you in the Powerful People community and back here on the next episode.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.